The mysterious cottage. In the heart of a small village nestled on the edge of a vast and ancient forest, there lived three sisters, Lila, Zara, and Amina. Their cottage, modest but warm, stood on the village's outskirts, surrounded by the whispering trees. They were a close-knit trio, each with her own distinctive nature. Lila, the eldest, was practical and responsible, always looking after her younger sisters with a sense of duty. Zara, the middle one, was bold and adventurous, forever seeking the next thrill and always urging the others to follow. Amina, the youngest, had a quiet spirit, a heart full of compassion, and an innate desire to help those around her. One crisp autumn afternoon, as they sat by the hearth, the village elders spoke in hushed tones of an old legend. The three sisters listened intently, intrigued by the tale that had been passed down through generations. The story was about a mysterious cottage hidden deep within the forest, a cottage said to be enchanted. According to the legend, the cottage had magical powers, granting wishes to those who could find it, but only if they were pure of heart. Yet, it was also said to be guarded by a powerful enchantment, and many who ventured into the woods never returned. The Enchanted Cottage, the elder woman's voice wavered with reverence, is a place of both wonder and danger. Only those with true courage and wisdom can unlock its secrets. But beware, for it may show you things you are not ready to see. Lila, always the sensible one, shook her head. It sounds like just another one of those old tales to keep us from wandering too far into the woods. There's no cottage, just a forest. But Zara's eyes sparkled with excitement. What if it's real, Lila? What if we could find it? Think of the adventure. Amina, who had been quietly listening, spoke up, her voice soft but filled with wonder. Do you think it could be true? Maybe it's not about finding a magical wish, but learning something important about ourselves. The three sisters fell into silence, each considering the possibility. Zara stood up, her eyes bright with anticipation. We could go. We could find it ourselves and see what it's all about. Lila frowned, knowing her younger sister's impulsiveness. Zara, don't be foolish. We don't know what's out there. What if something dangerous happens? But Zara was already turning to Amina, pleading, "Come on, Amina. We'll stick together, won't we? It'll be fun. Just think of the stories we could tell." Amina hesitated, but Zara's enthusiasm was hard to resist. "I think maybe it's worth a try. We've always wanted to explore the woods." Lila looked from one sister to the other. She could see the excitement in Zara's eyes and the quiet curiosity in Amina's. It would be dangerous, yes, but if they went together, maybe they could manage it. After a long pause, she sighed. "Fine, but we do this together, and we stick to the path. No wandering off." The next morning, the three sisters set out, their hearts filled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The forest was dense, and the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. Sunlight barely filtered through the canopy above, casting shifting shadows across the trail. As they ventured deeper, the sounds of the village faded away, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of birds. The path grew narrower, the trees seeming to close in around them. Zara led the way, her steps light and quick, eager to push forward. Lila kept a cautious pace behind her, scanning their surroundings with a wary eye. Amina followed closely, her fingers brushing against the rough bark of the trees as if seeking comfort in their steady presence. "This way," Zara called, veering off the path. "I'm sure it's just over here." Lila sighed, but Amina's gentle voice reminded them, "We promised to stay together." Zara paused and grinned. "I know, but what's the harm in taking a little detour? It's just a short way off the path." Reluctantly, Lila agreed, but she kept a firm hold on Amina's hand as they followed Zara. The deeper they went into the forest, the quieter it became. Even the birds seemed to have stopped singing. The atmosphere grew heavy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. After what felt like hours of walking, the sisters reached a small clearing. At first, they saw nothing but a few wildflowers swaying in the breeze. But as they moved closer to the center, something strange caught their eye, a faint glow like soft starlight. There, standing in the middle of the clearing, was a cottage. It was small, made of stone and wood, and unlike anything they had ever seen before. Vines of ivy curled around the walls, and flowers bloomed from the cracks in the stone, their petals shimmering in the dim light. The roof was covered with moss, and windows glowed with a soft, inviting warmth. The Enchanted Cottage. The sisters stood in awe, their hearts racing. It was real. "We found it," Zara whispered, her voice full of wonder. But as they stepped forward, a strange feeling washed over them, an unspoken warning in the air, as if the cottage was not just a place of magic, but also a place of tests. Lila hesitated, her protective instincts kicking in. "Are we sure we want to go in?" she asked, her voice cautious. But Zara, unable to resist, took a step toward the door. "We've come this far. Let's see what it's about." Amina glanced at her sisters, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe we'll learn something important." With that, the three sisters stepped into the cottage, unaware of the trials that awaited them inside. The door creaked shut behind them, and the enchantment of the cottage began to unfold. The journey to the Enchanted Cottage. The air inside the forest was thick with magic as the three sisters ventured deeper into the woods, their hearts full of both excitement and unease. The Enchanted Cottage was closer now, its soft glow visible through the trees like a distant star guiding them forward. Though Zara led the way with a determined grin, Lila's senses remained alert, watching every rustling leaf and listening for any unusual sound in the otherwise quiet woods. Amina, walking behind her sisters, kept her gaze on the ground, her thoughts uncertain but hopeful. The forest around them seemed to shift as they moved. The once clear path grew narrower, and the trees closed in, their towering trunks blocking out more and more sunlight. The wind whispered through the leaves in a language only the forest seemed to understand, and every few steps, the sisters noticed something strange, a branch hanging low, as if reaching out to touch them, or a shadow darting quickly across the forest floor. "I don't like this," Lila muttered under her breath. "It's as if the forest is watching us." Zara, ever the adventurous one, scoffed. "Don't be silly, Lila. It's just the forest. We're fine." But even as she said it, Zara quickened her pace, eager to reach the cottage. She had always craved adventure, and the pull of the unknown was too strong to ignore. Amina, walking beside Lila, stayed silent, but the uneasy look on her face didn't escape her older sister's notice. "This place is different," Amina finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can feel it." Lila gave Amina a reassuring smile. "It's just a forest. We've been through worse, right? We'll get there and figure it out." Despite Lila's calm words, something lingered in the air, an unfamiliar energy that made even her feel on edge. The trees here were older, their gnarled branches twisted in ways that seemed unnatural, and the underbrush thick with overgrown vines. The forest felt more alive than usual, as if it was holding its breath, waiting for something. Suddenly, Zara stopped in her tracks, pointing ahead. "Look, there's the clearing. The cottage is just beyond it." The three sisters hurried toward the clearing, their pace quickening as they glimpsed the faint light of the cottage ahead. But as they approached the edge of the open space, Lila's heart skipped a beat. There, in the middle of the clearing, stood a massive stone archway. It was not part of the cottage. They hadn't seen it before, but it seemed to shimmer with an ethereal glow, beckoning them forward. The sisters slowed down, exchanging uneasy glances. "What's that?" Zara asked, her curiosity piqued. "It wasn't here before." Lila's brow furrowed. "I don't know, but we should be careful." The legend didn't say anything about an archway. Amina, feeling the weight of the moment, spoke softly. "Maybe it's a part of the cottage's enchantment. The forest is full of surprises." Zara, not one to be deterred, was already moving toward the arch. "Let's find out." "No, Zara," Lila called, reaching out to grab her sister's arm. "This might be another part of the test. We don't know what it's for." But Zara shrugged off Lila's hand. "What's the worst that could happen? We're already here." With that, Zara stepped through the archway, and a strange sensation washed over her. It was as though the air itself had thickened, making her feel lighter, almost as if she were floating. For a moment, everything seemed to blur. Then suddenly, she was back on solid ground. Lila and Amina exchanged nervous glances before following Zara through the arch. As they crossed it, they were enveloped in a deep, almost suffocating silence. The woods on the other side felt entirely different, darker, more still, as though time itself had slowed. The trees here were twisted and bare, and the air smelled faintly of damp earth and old magic. The sisters stood still for a moment, taking in the change. The glow of the cottage had vanished, replaced by an eerie stillness. "Where did the cottage go?" Zara asked, looking around in confusion. "It was right here." Lila's heart pounded. "This isn't right. We've gone off the path. We need to go back." But before she could say more, a voice, soft and distant, echoed around them. "To enter the Enchanted Cottage, you must first face your fears." The voice seemed to come from every direction at once, and the sisters froze, their breaths catching in their throats. What does that mean?" Amina whispered. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet shifted. The air thickened again, and the world around them seemed to twist. The trees stretched higher, and a thick fog rolled in, making it impossible to see more than a few feet in front of them. A figure materialized from a mist. It was a tall woman, draped in a cloak of shimmering silver, her face hidden in shadow. Her voice echoed again, this time louder and more commanding. "To find what you seek, you must first confront that which you fear most. Only then will the path be revealed." Lila stepped forward, her voice firm. "We're not afraid of any tests. We just want to find the cottage. Take us there." The figure's eyes glowed with a pale light, and she shook her head. "The path will not be revealed until you confront what lies within. Only then can you move forward." The fog began to close in, and the trees seemed to whisper, pulling the sisters deeper into the unknown. Zara, ever the one to face challenges head-on, turned to her sisters, her expression resolute. "We have to go. Together. We can't turn back now." Lila and Amina nodded, their hearts heavy but determined. They knew this was just the beginning, but none of them were willing to back down. And so, the three sisters stepped forward into the heart of the forest, knowing that only by facing their deepest fears would they find the Enchanted Cottage and whatever else lay hidden within the forest steps. The cottage's test. The mist thickened as the sisters pressed onward, each of them feeling the weight of the unseen force that surrounded them. The eerie voice from the mist had disappeared, but its words lingered in the air. "Confront your fears." It seemed to whisper at every step. The fog clung to their skin like an invisible shroud, and the twisted trees stretched higher, their branches creating unnatural shapes against the pale sky. The deeper they went, the more disoriented they felt. But there was no turning back now. Zara, her usual bravado now tempered by uncertainty, led the way. Her every step was cautious, her mind racing. What could they possibly have to face? She had always been fearless, quick to leap into challenges head first. But this was different. "Keep moving," Lila urged, her voice tight. "Stay together. This is a test. We can't let it divide us." Amina, always the peacemaker, stayed close to her older sisters, her gaze flicking nervously to the shifting shapes in the mist. Her heart raced with an uneasy feeling. Something about the fog, the silence, unsettled her. She had always feared that she wasn't enough, that her kindness wasn't enough, that she was too soft in a world that demanded strength. What if this was the test? What if this was where she was found wanting? Suddenly, a faint glow appeared ahead of them. The faint outline of a door, made of shimmering wood, stood in the middle of the mist, a beacon in the void. Without hesitation, Zara approached it. "This is it," she whispered, reaching out for the handle. Lila held her back. "Wait, what if it's another trick?" But Zara shook her head, a mixture of defiance and curiosity in her eyes. "We won't know unless we go through." Reluctantly, Lila nodded. The three sisters stepped forward, each taking a deep breath as the door creaked open, revealing the cottage in its full splendor. The interior was more beautiful than they had imagined. Soft, golden light filled the space, illuminating the walls adorned with ancient tapestries and elegant furniture. The air was warm, filled with the faint scent of lavender and cedar. But something was off. The walls, though magnificent, seemed to pulse with energy, as if the cottage itself was alive. The door shut behind them with a soft click, and the sisters turned around, only to find themselves surrounded by a strange silence. The only sound was the faint ticking of a distant clock, marking time in an otherwise still world. Then, without warning, the walls shifted, and the atmosphere changed. A figure materialized before them. It was a mirror image of each sister, Lila, Zara, and Amina, standing tall with an aura of confidence. But each of them was different. These reflections were perfect, almost too perfect, and they radiated an unsettling sense of control. Lila's reflection stepped forward first, its eyes cold and unyielding. "You've always carried the weight of others," it said, its voice an eerie echo of her own. "You've always been the one to hold everything together. But what happens when you can't? What happens when you fail?" Lila's chest tightened. She had always feared this, that one day she would disappoint her sisters, that she wasn't strong enough to protect them. But the fear that gripped her now was deeper than she could have imagined. The reflection of Zara stepped forward next. "You've always leaped without thinking, haven't you?" it said, its voice mocking. "You think that if you act fast enough, nothing can touch you. But what if you're wrong? What if your impulsiveness leads to failure?" Zara's heart raced. She had always relied on her instincts, never pausing long enough to question them. The thought that her impulsiveness could lead to harm terrified her more than she was willing to admit. Then came Amina's reflection. It was quiet, but the words it spoke were heavy. "You believe kindness is enough, don't you? But kindness doesn't always win. What happens when you are too gentle in a world that demands strength? What happens when your compassion isn't enough to protect those you love?" Amina's eyes welled up, a deep ache swelling in her chest. She had always feared being too weak, too soft to make a difference. The thought of failing her sisters because of her own perceived inadequacy felt like a crushing weight on her shoulders. The sisters stood frozen, staring at the reflections, their fears manifesting before them. The room was suffocating with tension as the perfect images of themselves stared back at them, their words cutting deeper than any blade. It felt impossible to breathe, impossible to think. The walls seemed to close in around them. But then, through the suffocating silence, Amina spoke. Her voice, though small, carried a quiet strength. "We don't have to face this alone," she said, her words a lifeline in the crushing silence. "We're sisters. We've always been stronger together." Lila, still shaking with doubt, nodded. "We've always faced everything together. This isn't any different." Zara stepped forward, her gaze steady despite the fear that lingered in her heart. "I've made mistakes. I've acted without thinking, but I can learn. I can be better. We all can." The reflections, seeing their unity, faltered. The perfect images that had haunted them for so long began to fade, their sharp edges blurring into nothingness. The room began to shift again, the heavy atmosphere lifting. The cottage, which had seemed so imposing moments ago, now felt warmer, more welcoming. The walls no longer felt as if they were pressing in on them, and the tension that filled the air slowly evaporated. The voice from before echoed once more, softer this time, more reassuring. "You have faced your fears and emerged stronger. The path forward is now clear." With that, the walls of the cottage began to dissolve, and the mist outside seemed to lift, revealing a bright, open path ahead. The three sisters stood together, united in their resolve. "We've done it," Zara breathed, looking to her sisters with a newfound understanding. Lila smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Together, we can face anything." Amina's gentle voice added, "We've learned that our strengths lie not in being perfect, but in being together." And with that, the sisters stepped forward, knowing that their journey was far from over, but confident that, whatever lay ahead, they could face it as one. The true gift of the cottage. The mist that had once surrounded the sisters began to recede, and the once stifling atmosphere of the Enchanted Cottage faded into a comforting warmth. The path that lay ahead of them was now clear, and the world outside seemed to open up, like a veil lifting to reveal the beauty of the forest once more. The shadows that had clung to their hearts had disappeared, replaced by the steady rhythm of their breaths, still heavy from the test they had just faced. Lila, Zara, and Amina stood at the threshold of the cottage, the light now brighter, more inviting, as if the cottage itself had acknowledged their inner growth. The fog that had enveloped them had cleared, and the once overbearing presence of the forest seemed to step back, allowing the sisters to move forward with confidence. "We made it," Lila whispered, her voice full of wonder and relief. She could still feel the weight of the challenge they had faced, but now that it was over, there was a sense of accomplishment in her chest. They had not only survived the trial, but had emerged stronger and more united. Zara, her usual impulsive energy tempered with reflection, smiled at her sisters. "I don't think I've ever been more terrified in my life, but I'm proud of us. We did it." Amina, her quiet strength more evident than ever, nodded. "We were stronger together, weren't we?" The words echoed in the stillness, resonating within each of them. It was true. They had faced their deepest fears, not as individuals, but as a united force. And in doing so, they had learned something invaluable about themselves and about each other. But as they took a step away from the cottage, the air around them shifted once more, though this time it was not heavy with fear or tension. A gentle breeze stirred, carrying with it a soft voice, one that seemed to echo from the very heart of the forest. "You have proven yourselves worthy, sisters." The three girls turned, their eyes wide with curiosity. The voice was no longer eerie or ominous. It felt warm and soothing, like a guiding hand leading them onward. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to glow, the soft light emanating from the earth as if the land itself was alive. The sisters gasped as a shimmering figure appeared before them, an ethereal being made of light, its features shifting and changing like the gentle flow of a stream. The figure, though translucent, radiated an energy that was both calming and powerful. "I am the guardian of the Enchanted Cottage." The figure spoke, its voice like the wind through the trees. "You have passed the trials, not by defeating the forest, but by conquering the fears within yourselves. Now, I will grant you a gift, something that will stay with you always." The sisters stood in awe, unsure of what this mysterious figure meant. The guardian continued, "Each of you has something unique, something that no trial could take from you. But I shall give you the ability to harness it, to grow it, to shape it into something that can never be broken. You have earned it, for you have faced what you feared most." The figure turned toward Lila first. "You, who carry the weight of responsibility with such grace, shall have the strength to lead others, not by burden, but by example. You will know when to lift, when to guide, and when to step aside." Lila's heart swelled with a mix of gratitude and wonder. She had always been the protector, the one who shouldered the burden of her sister's safety, but hearing those words made her feel seen, truly seen. She had always feared that her strength would someday break under the weight of it all, but here, the guardian had shown her that true leadership wasn't about doing it all alone. It was about knowing when to lean on others. The guardian's gaze shifted to Zara. "You, whose courage is boundless, will gain the wisdom to temper your impulsive spirit. Your bravery is your gift, but now you will learn to act with purpose, to channel your fire into the world with precision." Zara's eyes brightened. For as long as she could remember, she had acted first and thought later. The idea that her spontaneous nature could be transformed into something purposeful and directed filled her with excitement. She had never feared her impulsive nature, but she had often wondered how it could be channeled into something greater. Finally, the guardian turned to Amina. "You, whose heart is soft yet strong, shall carry the gift of unwavering compassion. You will understand that true strength is not always seen in force, but in kindness. Your empathy will lead you to heal and to help, to lift those who need it most." Amina's chest tightened with emotion. She had always felt the pull of her gentle nature, unsure of how it could fit in a world that often prized power over tenderness. But now, hearing these words, she understood that her compassion was her greatest strength, and it was something the world needed more than ever. The guardian smiled, its form now radiating a brilliant light. These gifts are not to be wielded alone. Use them together, as you have learned to do. The strength of one is never as powerful as the strength of all. With a wave of its hand, the light surrounding the sisters intensified, wrapping them in a soft, golden glow. The world around them seemed to pause, and for a brief moment, the sisters stood in the heart of the forest, connected not just to each other, but to the very essence of the enchanted cottage itself. As the light faded, the guardian was gone, leaving behind a quiet stillness in its wake. The sisters, though awestruck, felt no fear, only peace. They had been granted something far more valuable than magic: knowledge, understanding, and a deep bond of sisterhood that could not be broken by any trial. The forest around them had transformed, no longer a place of uncertainty, but a landscape of promise and possibility. The cottage, too, had vanished, its purpose fulfilled. But the lessons it had taught them would stay with the sisters forever. "We're ready," Lila said, her voice firm, yet filled with warmth. "We're ready to face whatever comes next." Zara nodded, her usual spark reigniting. "Together." Amina smiled softly, her heart full. "Together." And so, the three sisters stepped forward, not into the unknown, but into the future, where their gifts and the bond they shared would carry them through whatever lay ahead.